The September jobs report out today pushed the markets nearly 400 points higher, but it wasn't all good news. Michelle Meyer, U.S. economist at Bank of America, is here with me now to run us through the numbers and explain what all of this means for you. Michelle, the headline number here, 3.5% unemployment. That's a 50-year low. Would you just run us through kind of all the numbers we got in this report today that matter?
Yeah, sure. So that's always the complication with the jobs report, is that you have a lot of different figures thrown at the same time, in part because there's different surveys that the BLS uses, the Bureau of Labor Statistics uses to calculate it. But the three numbers to pay attention to. The first one is overall job creation, 136,000 in job creation. That's pretty close to what the market was looking for, what we were forecasting as well. And it shows that job creation has slowed from where we were this time last year, where we were seeing more than 200,000 jobs being created each month. But it's still a pretty decent pace of job growth. The second number is the unemployment rate, which came in at 3.5%, which was a decline from what we had seen last month and a 50-year low. Now, that is good news. Clearly, a drop in the unemployment rate is quite encouraging, but that came from a different survey than that job creation number, and that other survey tends to be a bit more volatile. And importantly, despite the drop in the unemployment rate, we didn't see wages rise, and that's the third number to pay attention to, which is average hourly earnings or wage growth. In theory, when you have a drop in the unemployment rate, a tightness in the labor market, it would push up wage growth, give people more bargaining power, and you didn't see that because wages actually slipped a bit.
If someone is listening to you say all this and thinking, okay, so what should I take away from this? Was this a good report? Was this a bad report? What would you say to them?
Not to be a two-handed economist, it was kind of bad and good. Okay. In the sense that, you know, it shows some slowing in job creation. Wages were soft, but we still have a pretty decent labor market. The unemployment rate is very low, and people are not getting fired, right? So in that respect, that's a good thing. Yeah.
Were there areas where hiring was particularly strong, areas that were particularly weak?
You know, so we did see a contraction in manufacturing jobs, which makes sense given that's an area of the economy that's been slowing the most, given that's the area that's most vulnerable to the trade war and to the global slowdown. Retail trade is another area that has been contracting for a while now, and that's a structural adjustment because consumers are consuming differently. They're no longer going to as many stores. Brick and mortar have changed their model, so retail jobs are just not as prevalent. You know, in terms of services producing jobs, with just over 100,000 service producing jobs created, you know, healthcare, education, that's very steady and very solid, and that continues. Yeah.
All right, I have a shorter term question for you and then a longer term question. Short term, we know the Fed meets at the end of the month. How does this impact whether or not we think we're going to get a rate cut? What impact will this have on that?
Yeah, I think the Fed is gearing up to cut rates again. And to remember, they cut already twice in this new cycle. So they had cut significantly during the recession. They kept rates on zero, the zero lower bound, and then they started to normalize back in 2016, 2017, and 2018, and now they started cutting again. So I do think it will prompt them to deliver one more cut in the October meeting, perhaps more than that, depending on how the data plays out. My baseline forecast is that we'll see a cut in October and December, which is 100 basis points cumulative of cuts, and then the Fed will sit on hold at that low level of interest rates for 2020.
So when you start talking about rate cuts, people start worrying about the economy. Bigger picture, what does today's jobs report mean in terms of a recession potentially looming, where we're headed as an economy? Does this add to that notion? Does it not? What do you think's ahead?
So it's not a recessionary report.
Okay.
Right. And I think the Fed isn't cutting because a recession is here. They're cutting because they want to prevent the recession from coming. So what they're seeing is an environment where there's downside risks, where growth is moderating, and they want to get ahead of it. They want to be early. And they want to try to prevent the recession from kicking in. So I think we're seeing a slowing in growth, but we're not seeing a recession. And I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah. So people hear those words kind of thrown around and they think, oh, goodness, do I need to worry right now? Not something you expect to see in the short term?
You know, look, we are more vulnerable to recession. When you have a slowdown in the economy, we're in later stages, the vulnerabilities are higher. But I think what's been quite clear from the data is that we're not at a point yet where consumers are cutting back or businesses are firing. And the Fed is not cutting because they see a recession. They're cutting because they want to prevent it.
That's what that tool's there for, right?
And that's exactly right. And I think that's quite important. And I think that's being reflected in markets as well. When you saw the stock market, for example, up today, I think, you know, they saw the slowdown in job creation, but it's not recessionary.
All right, so tell me if I'm characterizing this correctly. Something to maybe be aware of, but not to worry about just yet?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. To be aware of, to have your eyes open, to monitor what's happening globally, to think about what's happening in terms of business behavior. But at this point, income is still flowing and jobs are still being created.
All right, Michelle, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.